Welcome to the sixth day of our 40-day journey of spiritual transformation. In previous days, we explored how to transform curses into blessings, complaints into praise, negative words into edifying ones, plagues into fruitfulness, and traps into security. Today, we will address an equally powerful theme: how to transform bondages into autonomy. Have you ever felt trapped by something you can't explain? As if there were an invisible force limiting your steps, keeping you in the same place, preventing your growth? This sensation of being bound, whether to a negative thought pattern, a toxic relationship, a destructive habit, or even negative spiritual influences, is an experience common to many of us. But the good news, the liberating truth we'll explore today, is that these bondages don't have to be permanent. We were created for freedom, to soar high like eagles, to explore the expansive horizons of our spiritual potential. And when we understand the nature of the bondages in our lives and address them with the right spiritual tools, we can transform them into an experience of freedom that not only benefits us but inspires everyone around us. There's an ancient story about a man who found a baby eagle that had fallen from its nest. With compassion, he took it to his farm and placed it in the chicken coop. There, the eagle grew up among chickens, learning to peck at the ground in search of corn and insects, believing it was just another chicken in the yard. Years passed, and one day, a naturalist visited the farm and, seeing the eagle in the chicken coop, asked the farmer, "Why is this magnificent eagle living like a chicken?" The farmer explained that since he had raised it among chickens, it identified as a chicken. The naturalist insisted, "Even so, it has the heart of an eagle and can surely learn to fly." The skeptical farmer agreed to let the naturalist try. The next day, the naturalist took the eagle, brought it to a hill and said, "You belong to the sky, not the earth. Open your wings and fly." The confused eagle looked around, saw the chickens pecking below, and jumped down to join them. The next day, the naturalist took the eagle to the top of a mountain. Above them, other eagles soared majestically in the thermal currents. "You are an eagle," said the man. "You belong to the sky. Open your wings and fly." But again, the eagle, accustomed to its chicken identity, hesitated. On the third day, the naturalist woke up before dawn and took the eagle to the highest peak in the region. As the sun began to rise, illuminating the valley below and the mountains around, the naturalist held the eagle toward the rising sun and said, "You are an eagle. You belong to the sky, not the earth. Open your wings and fly." The eagle opened its eyes to the sun, felt the warmth in its bones, and something ancient and powerful awakened within it. Slowly it opened its wings, and with a cry that echoed through the valley, it launched itself into the sky, flying higher and higher, finally free to be who it truly was. This parable perfectly illustrates the journey many of us need to make. Like that eagle, many of us live far below our potential, bound to identities and limitations that don't correspond to our true nature. We were created for the heights, but for various reasons, we've become accustomed to living pecking at the ground. What are these bondages that keep us grounded when we should be flying? First, there are mental bondages, limiting thought patterns that keep us trapped in cycles of fear, doubt, self-criticism, and negativity. These patterns often form early in our lives as a result of difficult experiences or negative messages we've internalized. Over time, these thoughts become so habitual that we no longer notice their presence. They simply become the lens through which we see ourselves and the world. Second, there are emotional bondages, unhealed wounds, traumas, hurts, and resentments that continue to influence our behavior and choices long after the original event. These emotional bondages are particularly powerful because they operate primarily below the level of consciousness, directing our automatic responses to situations that somehow remind us of the original wound. Third, there are relational bondages, unhealthy dynamics, distorted expectations, and patterns of codependency that keep us trapped in cycles of harmful behavior with others. These bondages are especially challenging because they involve not just our own psychology, but also that of others, creating complex systems of interaction that resist change. Fourth, there are habit bondages, repetitive behaviors that may have started as conscious choices but have become automatic and compulsive over time. These include not only traditional addictions, but also subtle patterns of self-destructiveness, procrastination, or comfort-seeking that keep us trapped in cycles of limitation. Finally, there are spiritual bondages, disconnections from our higher purpose, blockages in our relationship with the divine, or negative influences that affect our ability to fully experience our spiritual nature. These bondages can manifest as a sense of emptiness, lack of meaning, or a persistent inability to grow spiritually despite our best efforts. What all these bondages have in common is that they limit us, keep us trapped in patterns that don't serve our highest good, and prevent us from experiencing the freedom for which we were created. But there's an important dynamic we need to understand. These bondages only have power over us when we allow them, usually through breaches in our spiritual life. A breach is any area where our spiritual vigilance has diminished, where our commitment to higher values has weakened, or where we've allowed negative influences to gain access to our mind and heart. Think of it as a fortress with high, strong walls. If the walls are intact, the fortress is secure. But if there are breaches in the walls, areas of fragility or carelessness, then the fortress becomes vulnerable to external attacks. Similarly, when we maintain a healthy spiritual life, grounded in principles such as love, truth, compassion, and connection with the divine, we naturally become resistant to many of the bondages that afflict those whose spiritual foundation has weakened. This is a profound truth that many spiritual masters have taught throughout history. The best defense against negative bondages is not fear or superstition, but a robust and vibrant spiritual life. As it is written in sacred texts, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. The more aligned we are with elevated spiritual truths, the less vulnerable we become to influences that seek to limit us. So how can we transform bondages into autonomy? This process involves several important steps. The first step is recognition. We cannot transform what we don't recognize. Many people spend their entire lives trapped in bondages they never consciously identify. They simply accept their limitations as the way things are. Liberation begins when we have the courage to look honestly at our lives and recognize the areas where we feel bound. This recognition requires humility and courage. Humility to admit that we're not living up to our potential, and courage to face uncomfortable truths about ourselves that we need to address in order to grow. The second step is responsibility. Although many of our bondages may have originated from circumstances beyond our control, childhood experiences, actions of others, or even negative spiritual influences, the responsibility for our liberation is ultimately ours. No one else can do this work for us. Taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself for the problems or difficulties you face. It simply means recognizing your power to respond to these situations in ways that promote healing and growth, rather than continued victimization. The third step is renewal. Once we recognize our bondages and take responsibility for our liberation, we need to renew our mind, heart, and spirit. This renewal happens through practices such as prayer, meditation on elevated principles, study of inspiring texts, and communion with others who share our spiritual values. As a sacred text reminds us, Do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. This renewal is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process of realignment with higher truths that gradually dissolves the bondages that once limited us. The fourth step is release. Some bondages require a deliberate act of letting go, forgiving someone who hurt us, abandoning a limiting belief that no longer serves our growth, leaving a toxic relationship, or breaking destructive habits. This release often involves a period of discomfort as we navigate the uncertainty that comes with abandoning familiar patterns, even those that harm us. It's like the eagle in the parable. The leap into the unknown is frightening but necessary to discover wings that were always there. The fifth step is re-establishment. As we free ourselves from old bondages, we need to establish new patterns, new habits, new ways of thinking and being that support our newly discovered autonomy. This re-establishment is crucial. Nature abhors a vacuum, and if we don't fill the space left by old bondages with something positive and constructive, we risk returning to the same limiting patterns. The sixth and final step is reintegration. True autonomy is not just for our own benefit, but to allow us to live more fully in service to others and the world. When we transform our bondages into autonomy, we are called to reintegrate this new freedom into all aspects of our lives: our relationships, our work, our community, and our connection with the divine. This reintegration transforms our personal journey of liberation into something that benefits everyone around us, like eagles that by flying high inspire others to do the same. An important aspect of this transformation from bondages to autonomy is understanding our true spiritual identity. Many bondages persist because we accept a false or limited identity, like the eagle that believed itself to be a chicken. Our fundamental identity from a spiritual perspective is that of beloved children of the Creator, made in the divine image, destined to express qualities such as love, creativity, wisdom, and compassion. When we reconnect with this essential identity, many bondages simply lose their power over us as we recognize that they are not compatible with who we truly are. As it is written in sacred texts, "Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom." This autonomy is not just the absence of external limitations, but the presence of an inner vitality, an alignment with our deepest spiritual nature that naturally dissolves many of the bondages that once restricted us. It's important to recognize that the journey of transforming bondages into autonomy is rarely a linear or quick process. There will be advances and retreats, moments of clarity followed by periods of confusion, inspiring victories, and unexpected challenges. A useful analogy is that of a tree whose roots were bound as it grew. When the bondages are finally removed, the tree doesn't straighten up instantly. It takes time for it to find a new form, gradually responding to its newly discovered freedom. Similarly, our healing and transformation is a process that unfolds over time as we learn to live from our inherent autonomy rather than the bondages that once defined us. For this sixth day of our transformation journey, I want to propose 3 specific practices that can help you begin to transform bondages into autonomy in your own life. First, take time today for honest identification. Find a quiet place, free from distractions, and ask yourself, in what areas of my life do I feel bound or limited? Write your answers in a journal, being as specific as possible. This isn't just about listing external problems, but identifying the internal patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior that contribute to your sense of being bound. Second, for each bondage you've identified, ask yourself, what is the higher truth I can embrace in this situation? If a bondage is related to fear, the higher truth might be that you are stronger than your fears. If it's related to a toxic relationship, The higher truth might be that you deserve healthy and nurturing relationships. Write these truths next to each bondage as a positive affirmation of the reality you wish to manifest. Third, create a symbolic ritual of liberation. This can be as simple as burning the paper where you wrote your bondages, or as elaborate as a personal ceremony with elements meaningful to you. What's important is that the ritual tangibly represents your intention to transform bondages into autonomy. Conclude the ritual with a prayer or affirmation that declares your intention to live from your true identity as a free spiritual being. Remember, this is just the beginning of an ongoing journey. The transformation of bondages into autonomy doesn't happen in a day, but it begins with a single courageous step in the right direction. Like the eagle that finally opened its wings to fly, you too have within you everything you need to transcend the limitations that have kept you bound. One day, looking back on your spiritual journey, you'll see that the very bondages that once seemed to limit you became the catalysts for your deepest growth. As a spiritual master once said, "The same door that locks also opens." The situations that seem to limit us often contain, hidden within them, the seeds of our greatest liberation. Tomorrow, we'll continue our journey exploring how to transform harm into benefit. But for today, let's focus on recognizing our bondages, embracing higher truths, and taking the first steps toward the autonomy that is our spiritual birthright. Let's conclude this 6th day with a prayer. God of infinite love, today I recognize the bondages in my life that have limited my experience of the autonomy for which I was created. Many of these bondages have deep roots, some so old that I barely remember a life without them. Today, with courage and humility, I ask that you help me to clearly identify these bondages, to understand their origins, and to find the path to my liberation. Where I am trapped by fear, free me with courage. Where I am bound by hurt, heal me with forgiveness. Where I am limited by destructive habits, renew me with loving discipline. Help me to remember that my true identity is that of your beloved child, created to express divine qualities of love, wisdom, creativity, and compassion. This identity is my spiritual heritage, my birthright that no bondage can permanently obscure. Give me strength to take the necessary steps toward my liberation, even when these steps lead me through unknown or uncomfortable territories. Help me to trust that, like the eagle opening its wings for the first time, I will discover capabilities within me that have always been there, waiting to be activated. And finally, as I experience greater autonomy in my own life, help me to be an instrument of your liberation for others, sharing with compassion and humility the lessons I've learned on my own journey. In gratitude and hope I pray. Amen. If this content is touching your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and share with those who can benefit from this message. Tomorrow we will continue our 40-day journey, exploring even more how we can transform challenging aspects of our lives into opportunities for growth and blessing. Remember, the bondages in your life don't determine your destiny. What matters is how you transform them. Like the eagle that finally flies, you too were created for the heights. It's time to open your wings and discover how high you can fly. Until tomorrow.